abyss beckons with a chilling call. Come closer, listen to the shadows draw. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid. Tales from the shadows will spook your world. Join us on this journey, let your fears unfurl. Stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
Welcome friends to Tales from the Shadows. We continue our tale, picking up right where we left off. The day after the battle, Valhalla Prep buzzed with an uneasy energy. Repairs to the front gates were underway, and the instructors doubled patrols around the grounds. Despite the chaos, classes resumed, and students were encouraged to continue their studies as best they could. Denny, however, couldn't shake the feeling of restlessness. His encounter with the shadowy intruder replayed in his mind, along with Mimir's words about the importance of mastering control. But it wasn't just combat skills that made a hero. There were other lessons he needed to learn, some of which he didn't fully understand. The morning sun filtered through the ancient oaks surrounding Valhalla Prep as Denny made his way to the healing hall. He had promised Freya he'd join her for a class she thought might help him. Freya seemed convinced that being a well-rounded warrior required more than brute strength, and after the battle, Denny couldn't argue. He entered the hall to find a small group of students gathered around a large stone table covered in herbs, poultices, and magical runestones. Freya stood near the front, grinning when she saw him. "Glad you made it," she said, motioning for him to join her. Denny took a spot beside her, feeling a little out of place. The hall was calming, with hanging ivy, lavender, and sage wafting through the air. It was a stark contrast to the intensity of combat training. At the head of the room stood Instructor Eir, a Valkyrie known for her healing prowess. Her long golden hair was braided intricately, and her blue eyes radiated wisdom. "Welcome all," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "Today's lesson is about the art of healing. It is a skill that every warrior should possess, not only for the benefit of others, but also for oneself." Denny shifted uncomfortably. Healing magic wasn't something he'd ever considered learning. It seemed too delicate. He was used to wielding a warhammer, not herbs and incantations. But Freya nudged him, her eyes bright with encouragement. Eir continued, "Power and strength can win battles, but knowledge and compassion can save lives. Today, we will learn a basic healing technique using runic energy and natural remedies." She demonstrated by taking a smooth stone engraved with the rune for renewal and placing it over a shallow cut on a volunteer's arm. The rune glowed with a whisper of Old Norse, and the cut began to knit itself back together. The students watched in awe as Eir's magic worked seamlessly. "Now it's your turn," Eir said, gesturing for the students to collect their runestones and herbs. Denny grabbed a rune marked with the symbol for healing and a handful of goldenrod. He felt awkward, trying to remember what Eir had said about focusing his energy. Freya worked beside him, carefully grinding herbs into a paste with surprising skill. "You've done this before," Denny noted, raising an eyebrow. Freya shrugged, a playful smile dancing on her lips. "Growing up, I had to patch up a lot of scraps. My brothers were always getting into trouble." Denny attempted to mimic Eir's technique, placing the rune over a small enchanted wound on a training dummy. He whispered the incantation, but instead of a steady glow, the rune sparked erratically, and nothing happened. He sighed, frustration bubbling up. "I'm not cut out for this." Freya leaned over to look at his attempt. "Relax, you're trying too hard. Healing isn't about force, it's about patience, trusting the energy to flow where it's needed." Denny took a deep breath, trying to quiet his mind. He thought of the storm inside him, the energy that often felt wild and uncontrollable. But here, in this serene space, he realized he needed to think differently. He focused on calmness, picturing the energy as a gentle stream instead of a raging storm. He placed the rune on the dummy again, his touch lighter this time. As he whispered the incantation, the rune began to glow softly, and the wound on the dummy started to close. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. A sense of relief and accomplishment washed over him. Freya beamed. "See, you did it." Denny couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, I guess I did. Ear approached, observing his progress. Well done, she said, her expression kind. Healing requires balance and understanding. Remember that lesson, Denny Wyatt, for there will be times when you must heal and fight. Denny nodded, feeling a sense of pride. The experience had been humbling, but it also opened his eyes to a different side of being a warrior. It wasn't just about smashing enemies or channeling raw power. It was about protecting and caring for the people around him. After the class ended, Denny and Freya walked back toward the central courtyard. The sun had climbed higher, casting golden light over the academy. Thanks for convincing me to try that, Denny said. I needed it more than I realized. Freya bumped his shoulder playfully. Anytime. You're getting better, you know. Not just with fighting, but everything. Denny's smile widened, and for a moment, the weight of his responsibilities felt a little lighter. Valhalla Prep was a total of challenges, but it was also full of moments like these, moments where he felt a sense of belonging and growth, and that was something worth fighting for. The days following Denny's healing class were filled with tension and unease at Valhalla Prep. Whispers circulated about the shadowy intruder and their ominous warning. Students trained harder, instructors heightened their vigilance, and Denny grappled with the weight of expectation. He was the son of Odin, after all, and there was a legacy to uphold. One afternoon, Denny and Freya sat under a sprawling oak tree, studying a map of the 9 realms spread out on the grass between them. Freya traced her finger along the map. Look, if we're going to figure out what's going on with that intruder, we need to know where they came from. The shadows they commanded could come from any of the 9 realms. We have to narrow it down. Denny nodded, peering closely at the ancient parchment. What if it was Niflheim? The realm of fog and shadows would be a perfect hiding place for someone like that. Freya frowned, her brow furrowing. True, but it could also be Svartalfheim. The dark elves have been restless lately. If they're involved, it could mean trouble. Before Denny could respond, Mimir appeared, gliding up to them with an urgent expression. You two are on the right track, he said, peering over their shoulders at the map. But time is of the essence. I've just received word from the All-Father himself. Denny's heart raced. What did he say? Mimir's eyes were serious. Odin believes the dark forces that attacked Valhalla Prep are working together, something unprecedented. We need to send a group into the realms to investigate. Freya straightened, excitement sparking in her eyes. A quest! Denny, this is our chance! Denny felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Wait, us? You think we're ready for something like this? More than ready, Mimir replied, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. But you will not be alone. You will be joined by others from the Academy. Together, you will uncover the truth and stop whatever dark plan is in motion. Denny glanced at Freya, who nodded eagerly. We have to do this. It's our chance to show everyone we're more than just students. We're warriors. Mimir nodded in agreement. Gather your gear and meet me at the Great Hall in 1 hour. I will brief you and the rest of your team. Denny's heart raced. A quest was precisely what he needed to prove himself. He turned to Freya, determination flooding through him. Let's do it. The hour flew by as Denny and Freya hurried to gather their gear. Denny packed his war hammer, extra runestones, and a few personal items, like the amulet from his mother, a reminder of his humanity amidst all the chaos. Freya, ever prepared, filled her suitcase with daggers, healing herbs, and a compact spellbook. A sense of purpose filled the air when they arrived at the Great Hall. Mimir stood at the head of the long table, flanked by a small group of students. Eric, the boisterous warrior, Celine, a skilled archer with an uncanny knack for finding trouble, and Bjorn, a quiet but powerful son of Thor, whose presence alone commanded respect. Welcome, team, Mimir began, his tone serious. You are being sent on a mission to uncover the source of the darkness threatening Valhalla Prep and the realms beyond. Each of you brings unique skills to this team, and you will be stronger together. Denny felt a swell of pride. He glanced at his teammates, each ready for the challenge ahead. Mimir continued. Your first destination will be Niflheim. It's crucial to gather intel on any dark forces gathering there. You will need to travel swiftly and quietly. Stealth is key. Eric leaned forward, a mischievous grin on his face. Stealth? Sounds boring. I'd rather smash some skulls. Mimir shot him a stern look. You will do as the mission requires, Eric. Understood? Yes, sir, Eric replied, his bravado fading. Good, Mimir said, returning to the map. You will travel through the Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting the realms. It will bring you to the outskirts of Niflheim. I've arranged for you to meet a contact who can guide you deeper into the realm. Denny felt the weight of responsibility settles on his shoulders. What should we be on the lookout for? Mimir's expression darkened. Watch for signs of the Dark Elves. Their presence in Niflheim could mean they are working with the shadowy figure who attacked the Academy. And remember, you must return with vital information to protect Valhalla Prep. Freya placed a reassuring hand on Denny's shoulder. We'll stick together. We've trained for this. Denny nodded, feeling the storm within him settle into a focused determination. Let's do this. As they prepared to leave, Mimir gave them final instructions. Trust your instincts, rely on each other, and remain vigilant. The shadows are ever watchful. With that, Denny and his team stepped outside, the air crisp and excited. The path to the Bifrost shimmered ahead of them, a rainbow bridge stretching across the sky like a gateway to adventure. Denny took a deep breath, the weight of destiny heavy in his heart. Ready? Freya asked, glancing at each of them. Let's go, Eric shouted, raising his weapon high. As they crossed the Bifrost, the colours swirling around them, Denny felt a surge of hope. This was their chance to make a difference, to confront the darkness head-on. Together, they would uncover the truth, face whatever lay ahead, and protect their home. And deep within him, the storm crackled with anticipation. When Denny and his team stepped off the Bifrost, they were enveloped in a thick, swirling mist. Niflheim was even more foreboding than Denny had imagined, with shadowy tendrils of fog snaking around their feet. Stick close, Mimir instructed, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Your contact should be waiting for you just beyond that ridge. Freya tightened her grip on her daggers. I don't like this place. It feels wrong. I feel it too, Denny admitted, his heart racing. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and the further they ventured, the more he sensed they were being watched. Eric chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. What? You afraid of a little fog? This is just ambience. Yeah, the ambience that makes it hard to see, Celine shot back, her keen eyes scanning the horizon. Keep your wits about you, or we'll be caught off guard. As they made their way up the ridge, Denny felt the weight of responsibility settles over him like a heavy cloak. This was his chance to prove himself to his friends and the legacy he carried as Odin's son. At the crest of the ridge, they paused, gazing out at the eerie beauty of Niflheim. An expanse of ice stretched endlessly before them, broken only by shadowy figures in the distance. There! Freya pointed. Is that our contact? A silhouette emerged from the mist, a hooded figure draped in tattered furs that swayed in the cold breeze. As they approached, the figure pulled back its hood to reveal a sharp-featured face with piercing blue eyes that glinted like ice. Welcome, the figure said, their voice smooth and unsettling. I am Thalia, and I have been expecting you. Thalia, Mimir said, stepping forward with a nod. We need information about any dark forces gathering in Niflheim. Have you seen anything unusual? Thalia tilted her head slightly, studying each of them. Dark forces? Yes, they have been stirring. The Dark Elves have been moving through these mists, gathering power and plotting. Denny felt a knot form in his stomach. Do you know what their plan is? Thalia gestured for them to follow, leading them deeper into the icy landscape. Come, I can show you what I've witnessed, but you must tread carefully. The shadows are alive here, and they listen. Denny felt the air grow colder as they walked, each breath becoming visible in the icy air. The landscape shifted, with frost-covered trees that seemed to reach out like bony fingers grasping for warmth. Thalia led them to a small cave, partially hidden by ice. In here, she instructed, her voice low, you will see what I have gathered. Inside the cave, the atmosphere shifted again. The walls glimmered with a strange light, reflecting images of shadowy figures moving through the mists of Niflheim. This is a gathering, Thalia explained, gesturing to the images. They are conspiring against Valhalla Prep and the other realms. They believe it is their time to rise with the old gods fading. Denny's heart raced. How do we stop them? Thalia turned, her expression grave. You cannot confront them openly yet. They are too powerful in their numbers, but you must gather more information. You need to find out who is leading them. I can guide you to their hidden encampment, but you must be stealthy. Stealth is my specialty, Celine said, a glint of determination in her eyes. Denny glanced at his teammates. We need to stick together. If we can find their leader and learn their plans, we can warn Valhalla Prep before it's too late. Then let us move quickly, Thalia urged. Follow me, and remember, the shadows are deceptive. Trust your instincts. With Thalia leading the way, they slipped out of the cave and back into the misty landscape. Denny felt the shadows watching them, as if they were alive, and waiting for the moment to strike. They moved through the icy terrain, navigating the maze of ice and fog. Denny kept his senses sharp, aware of every sound and movement. Suddenly, a rustle in the distance caused him to halt. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, instinctively tightening his grip on his hammer. Freya nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Something's out there." Thalia raised a hand, signaling for silence. "Stay close and stay low." They crouched behind a cluster of icy boulders, peering into the mist. Denny's heart raced as shadows shifted in the fog, revealing dark elves patrolling the area, their armor glinting ominously. "Look," Thalia whispered, pointing. "They're guarding the entrance to their encampment." Denny's pulse quickened. "What do we do now?" Thalia scanned the area, her brow furrowed in thought. "We need a distraction. If we can draw them away from the entrance, we can slip inside and gather more information." "Eric, how about you create some noise?" Freya suggested. "You're good at that." Eric grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Consider it done." He looked at Denny and Celine. "On 3, we'll create a diversion. Just be ready to move." Denny nodded, his heart pounding. "All right, let's do this." They counted down together. 1, 2, 3. Eric let out a loud, thunderous battle cry, charging toward a cluster of dark elves, his axe raised high. The sound echoed through the fog, and the elves turned, eyes wide with surprise. "Go, now!" Thalia urged, leading the charge toward the entrance of the encampment. Denny and Freya followed closely, their hearts racing as they darted past the distracted guards. The shadows swirled around them, but Denny kept his focus, adrenaline propelling him forward. They slipped into the encampment, which consisted of makeshift tents and campfires flickering in the darkness. The air was thick with tension, and Denny could hear the murmur of voices nearby. "Okay, we're in," Freya said, glancing around. "Now what?" Thalia nodded, her eyes scanning the area. "We need to find the leader. They'll likely be in the largest tent. Follow my lead and stay silent." As they crept through the encampment, the shadows danced at the edges of their vision. Denny felt a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through him. At the center of the camp stood a large tent, its flaps billowing in the cold breeze. Denny could hear voices rising above the rest, one cutting through the air with commanding authority. "Victory is within our grasp," a deep voice proclaimed. "The gods have grown weak, and now is the time for us to seize what is rightfully ours." Denny exchanged glances with his teammates, a sense of foreboding settling over them. They had to hear more. Thalia motioned for them to stay close as they crept toward the tent. Peering inside, Denny's breath caught in his throat. The tent was filled with dark elves, their faces twisted with malice. At the head of the group stood a figure draped in black robes, a dark elf with a crown of ice and shadows. "This is our moment," the figure continued, raising a fist. "With the old gods distracted, we will strike at the heart of Valhalla Prep. Our enemies will fall, and we will take our place as the rulers of all realms." Denny felt the heat of anger rise within him. They were planning to attack his home. He could feel the storm inside him stir, ready to unleash its fury, but he knew they needed more information. "Stay focused," Thalia whispered, her eyes locked on the leader. "We must learn their strategy." The dark elf continued to rally the others, detailing plans that made Denny's stomach churn. They spoke of alliances with other dark forces, of an army gathering to lay siege to Valhalla Prep. "This can't happen," Denny whispered, a fierce determination surging. "We have to stop them." Freya nodded, her jaw set. "But we need to find a way to return this information to the Academy. They have to know what's coming." As they listened, Denny's mind raced. If they could find a way to disrupt this gathering, it might buy them the time they needed to warn Valhalla Prep. But they needed a plan. Something bold and daring. "Let's create chaos," Denny suggested, an idea forming. If we can break up this meeting, it will buy us time and maybe even allow us to gather what we need. Selene raised an eyebrow. And how do you propose we do that? Denny thought quickly. We could set fire to the smaller tents. It will draw their attention away from the leader. We can slip away when they scatter and grab what we need. Thalia nodded slowly. It's risky, but it could work. Eric grinned, cracking his knuckles. Count me in. I've always wanted to light something on fire. Then let's move, Denny said, determination settling in his chest. On 3. They counted down together again. 1, 2, 3. With that, they sprang into action. Eric led the way, sprinting toward the nearest tent, while Denny, Freya, and Selene flanked him. Light it! Freya shouted, igniting a torch and tossing it into the tent. The flames burst to life, licking at the fabric as smoke began to billow. Now! Denny yelled, and they darted back to their hiding place as shouts erupted from within the camp. What's happening? The Dark Elf leader's voice rose above the chaos. Put it out! Protect the meeting! Denny felt a surge of adrenaline as the camp erupted into disorder. Dark Elves scrambled to extinguish the flames, and amidst the confusion, Denny and his team slipped through the shadows, making their way toward the central tent. Inside, they could see maps spread across a table, diagrams marking Valhalla Prep and the planned invasion. Denny felt his heart race as he approached, quickly jotting down notes and memorizing the details. Grab anything you can, Freya urged, her eyes darting around, always on guard. As they hurriedly collected information, the shadows grew darker and crept toward them. Denny could feel the weight of unseen eyes, watching and waiting. Suddenly, a shout echoed from outside. They're here! The intruders! Time to go, Denny shouted, grabbing Freya's arm and pulling her toward the exit. They raced out of the tent just as Dark Elves began pouring in, fury etched on their faces. Denny led the charge, heart pounding as he navigated through the chaos. Back to the entrance! Thalia shouted, weaving through the tents. We must regroup! They ran, their feet pounding against the frozen ground, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Denny glanced back, spotting a group of Dark Elves charging after them, weapons drawn. Faster! Denny urged, adrenaline propelling them forward. We can't let them catch us! Just as they reached the ridge leading out of the encampment, a shadow darted before them, a Dark Elf blocking their path. Denny skidded to a halt, raising his hammer defensively. Not so fast, intruders! The Dark Elf sneered, brandishing a wicked blade. Get out of the way! Freya shouted, her daggers ready. Not a chance! The Dark Elf replied, eyes gleaming with malice. You won't escape this time. Denny felt the storm within him roar, but he knew they had to stay focused. We don't have time for this. Then let's make a way through, Eric said, taking a step forward. Eric charged at the Dark Elf with a fierce battle cry, swinging his axe. Denny felt the pulse of energy surge within him, ready to unleash its power, but the distraction was what they needed. As Eric engaged the Dark Elf, Denny and the others raced past, descending the ridge and toward the swirling mist. The sounds of battle faded behind them, and they felt a surge of hope for a moment. They emerged from the mist and stumbled into the clearing where the Bifrost shimmered in the distance. We made it! Selene exclaimed, her voice filled with relief. But just as they began to move toward the bridge, the shadows behind them thickened, and Denny felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Go! Thalia shouted, her voice filled with urgency. I'll hold them off! No, we can't leave you, Denny protested, the storm within him raging. Just go! You have to warn Valhalla Prep. Thalia insisted, her expression fierce. I'll slow them down, now! With a heavy heart, Denny turned to his team. We have to go. She's right. Let's move, Freya shouted, urgency filling her voice. As they raced toward the Bifrost, Denny glanced back one last time, catching a glimpse of Thalia standing firm against the Dark Elves. He felt a pang of sorrow, but knew they had no choice. Together, they dashed across the shimmering bridge, the colors swirling around them as they raced back to Valhalla Prep. Do you think we got enough information? Freya panted as they crossed the threshold between realms. Enough to warn them, Denny replied, his heart pounding. We have to prepare for their attack. As they stepped off the Bifrost and into the familiar grounds of Valhalla Prep, Denny felt the weight of their mission settle heavily on his shoulders. They had gathered vital intel, but the battle ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. Let's go! Eric shouted, determination shining in his eyes. "We need to alert the academy." Denny nodded, his resolve steeling. They had faced darkness, but they would fight for their home together. And in that moment, Denny understood. They were more than just students at Valhalla Prep. They were warriors, ready to confront the shadows that threatened their world. This tale continues next time on Tales from the Shadows, so be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
This has been Tales from the Shadows, where the shadows speak the stories that will make you weak. Join us on this journey into the unknown. Tales from the shadows, where fear is shown. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid.